Hey guys, Tommy Carrigan with Tommy Untamed. We've got a great show coming up. Thank you for watching. With Mr. John Cullen, who's been on here, I don't know, 10 times before. You can go to the description. You find the link to his YouTube as well as Twitter. And Dale, who's probably my most frequent guest. And you just came on 2 days ago with Tarek when we were talking about, the necessity of killing pedophiles. And so, uh, yeah, but so we're getting back into the Butler assassination attempt today because John has truly been the shining autist with this, and I don't mean that as an insult. I mean that as someone myself who is OCD and insane. I respect a bloodthirsty focus on detail, and that's what you're doing, and it's to the point where your shit's been brought up in Congress, which is wild. So I'm gonna shut up and hand it over to you.
All right. Good to see you, Dale. How are you, man?
Great. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. Yeah, this is kind of a little bit of a crazy story. I don't know to what extent you followed this detail of the Butler thing, but the week of the shooting back in July, right now, and now we're more than 9 months from the shooting. So the 1 year anniversary is less than 90 days away now.
Mm-hmm.
Right, July 13th is less than 90 days away. So within the first week, there was something, somebody called it to my attention, which is typically what happens. I get somebody sends me a message or something and says, check this out. And it was, I guess, like an Instagram or a TikTok or whatever it was. Somebody was filming from the assassination attempt from the venue. And what they captured was a round hitting a railing. And it's this is the pivotal piece of evidence because it's ballistic evidence. So when you've got photographic evidence of a round hitting something, that's considered ballistic evidence. That's something you can use, right? So since that's kind of the foundation for everything, Tommy, why don't I share that? I can share that with the audience. Right?
Absolutely. And I just realized for all the new listeners who so they know that this is what you've been into as well as, COVID and asteroids. Me, I do the podcast. If they're wondering why Dale's here, Dale's the youngest ever member of Delta Force, CIA Black Ops, nuclear facility security, trains K9s, PhD, black belt, personal security for billion. Dale is like Jason Bourne, just copy paste and put it in there, and there you go. So for anyone's like, who's Dale? Dale is the man that most people, I would imagine, for a lot of people, you're the last thing they've ever seen. But for me, you're my buddy, so that's why Dale's here.
Who's counting? Who's
Yeah.
counting? Yeah, who's counting? Well, Dale, I'm really grateful that you're putting your eyes on what we're about to look at because I think it's gonna give you goosebumps. I mean, last time you and I were together on the show with Tommy, we were talking about the Vegas shooting, right? And the lack of evidence that the window in the room was broken at all. And then we were talking about the possible
You press up, John.
stuff. So that was the Vegas shooting thing and the fact that that could potentially be covered up. Well, we get to the Butler assassination attempt and just sort of, let's see, I'm looking at what the date is, July 16th. So July 16th, I put out this video. And, a lot of my stuff is kind of, marketing hype based because, I'm trying to get subscribers and I'm trying to stand out in the sea of mediocrity, right? Mm-hmm. So in order to do that, I set my stuff to crazy music and EDM dance themes, and it's just completely inappropriate.
It's the only way to make any sort of. You got to be original. You can't.
Oh, and the fact that it's inappropriate just goes with my personality.
It also kind of makes it great. Yeah.
I've got the Asperger's, right? So to me, weird things are funny, right? So I like South Park and stuff like that as an adult man. All right, so let's take a look at this together. And again, I put this together 3 days after the event and published this on Twitter. So this is sort of the baseline. So let's take a look at this together.
Yeah.
Let me go into my share screen thing here, and we'll do that. And hopefully, I'm not going to blow you guys out with the audio on this. Let's go.
Oh, you're good.
Something that said, take a look what happened. Something that said, take a look what happened.
You see what I see?
Mm-hmm.
We got a round hitting this railing back here in the corner. Puff, 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 right? Puff of smoke. And kind of the weird thing is that there's a guy standing here in the corner with a red hat, dark blue shirt, and he's got his hand on the railing here. And the round hits the back of the railing, kind of behind him. And it's sort of like, I see the puff of smoke at the same moment we hear the first gunshot, right? I mean, let's watch this again. And do we see the puff of smoke at the same moment that we hear the first gunshot?
Take a look what happened. See something that said, take a look what happened. What happened? Take a look what happened. If you want to really see something that said, take a look what happened.
What you know
All
about?
right. So now what I end up doing is I get a photo, one of these aerial photos. Somebody was flying a drone around right after the event, and they posted this on YouTube. So I got a screen grab of it, and I said, all right, so we got a bullet hitting in the corner back there, and we've got this guy who flinches, falls down off the bleacher or something. He's like in white shirt, white shorts or something like that, and this guy falls down, and it's like, I don't know if he got hit, he got grazed, he just kind of felt the puff of air as the round passes him. You know, there's like a disturbance. I don't know what the hell happened, but clearly this guy is disturbed, and we see the puff of smoke in the corner at about the same moment that we hear the shot. Well, there's more. So we then go to, well, were those the only two people that were, grazed or whatever in that back row? And upon studying the footage, it turns out, who else got grazed, right? So we see this guy in white, he takes a tumble. We see the puff of smoke in the back corner, but anybody else in that back row? Did anybody else, respond in any way that's kind of, different from what we see in the other rows? And so I start to study the back row.
What you know about rolling down the beat? When your brain goes numb, you can call a man a freeze. When these people talk too much, put that shit in slow motion.
I want to really see something that said, take a look what happened. What happened? 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 What happened?
All right, the guy that I'm highlighting here is this guy. That's James Copenhaver. He gets shot twice. He gets shot in the tricep, gets shot in the deltoid. So his left deltoid gets a graze wound, and he takes one to the abdomen that I think ends up in his liver. So he gets hit twice. There's another guy in that back corner that also gets hit twice. His name is David Dutch. So we got two guys in this back corner who are each getting hit twice. We got one round hitting that railing, and we got the guy standing there in the back corner with his left hand on the railing. It's like, how's the round getting to that back corner railing if the round is coming from AGR? It doesn't quite line up. So I drew a line, this red line over here. I drew a line and said, well, wait a second. If the line is hitting the railing and it's disturbing everybody in this back row, let's extend that line back to the source. And it split the Secret Service counter snipers. This is 3 days after the event. And I'm looking at this and saying, holy shit. Somebody was shooting at the guys on the roof and missed. And that's the round that hit the corner railing.
It makes sense.
Somebody's trying to take out the counter snipers, Dale.
So,
Yeah, if you go back, can you maybe just back up just a little bit? I don't think you can see my cursor, but stop right there. So the first guy that you wasn't sure if he got hit or not, he went down. There's another guy right behind him wearing a white cap, and you can see him kind of flinching a little bit. So he
Yep.
had a near miss go past him, that made him flinch. And
That's
you're
right.
right. It would be it looks like that the bullet traveled that length there, and I
Wait do
would
you see this? Wait do you see that? I've got something called the flinch. I put together an assembled video called the flinch. And it's basically everyone responding to what you just said. I called the video the big flinch. Watch this. This is going to blow your mind. You nailed it. You nailed it in 2 seconds, bro. Check this out. The big flinch. Watch this. Everybody in the back row.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. So it looks like a woman with a white hat on. She's the one that
Yep.
I noticed flinch, and it looks like the bullet traveled in front of them, um, all of them. In fact, it's traveling in front of all of them. Now it's possible it traveled in front of all of them, and it went between the guy with the black shirt and red hat, whose arm is extended. It may have went around his right side between him and the other person standing there. So, but it looks
Pretty
like
wild, right? Pretty
it looks like
wild.
yeah, straight line travel. So it was on the outside of that entire row, except perhaps the guy in the black shirt. It went on his opposite side, and hit that rail, is what it looks like.
He just looked down. Look, he just looked down towards his groin. Look at that. He looks down towards his lap. Look at that. Right? Watch the guy with his hand on the railing in the blue shirt and the red hat. You're right. He's looking down like, damn, that just missed my thigh.
Well, which you said one of the guys took two shots, one
Uh-huh.
extremity and one in the liver. Which guy was that? The guy in the white shirt with the green on the back? That one right there.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yep. Uh-huh. So this guy here, his name is James Copenhaver. He gets hit twice. Once in the tricep,
Yeah.
deltoid. So shoulder, right at the shoulder.
Yeah.
And then the second hits his liver, hits him right in the torso. The
So
other guy
yeah. Continue.
is back here in the corner behind the guy with the blue shirt and the red hat. That's David Dutch is back here in this back corner. He gets hit twice as well.
Okay.
Each of these guys gets hit twice.
Yeah. So, okay, that makes sense then. So most likely what's happening is, so we probably got four shots that went through that crowd, hitting. Now it's possible the white guy in the white shirt, he maybe had a through and through shot through the arm or the deltoid, which went through,
Right. Yep.
and then possibly hit the guy, what's his name, David Dutch on the backside, probably hit him. And
Maybe.
one of the rounds probably is the ones that hit the rail. So for sure, I'm thinking there's probably at least one through and through shot of the four that went through.
Well, the other thing is, we have no idea what happened to this guy in white. So the guy in white is, like, in other words, is he an FBI agent who's in the crowd, just in case, something gets stirred up, right? So if we look for, this guy in white, it's like, dude, the guy takes a tumble that's pretty strong, right? So let's focus on this guy in white for a second, because he kind of establishes the 2 points make a line part of the story, right? We got a round hitting the corner railing, and we got this guy taking a pretty big tumble. And then what happens to him? In other words, after he takes the tumble, then what? Right? Did he just drop his iPhone? I mean, what was this all about? So let's watch this guy in white. This is the sort of the isolation I put together on the guy in white. who is this guy, man? Who is this guy? Nobody knows. Nobody knows who he is. He had, no social media, nothing. Talking about what he saw, nothing. Now the issue here, let me show you. All right, let me show you another clip because this is sort of the compilation. So, sort of 2 weeks into this thing, I put out sort of an all hands on deck request. And I said, I need to find somebody who knows how to use this Blender 3D thing so that we can model the venue. And sure enough, guy comes forward who's like an architect designer guy who does, architectural projects and interiors and whatever. And he comes forward and he's like, I can help you. I can help you with this thing. So he builds a 3D model of the venue. And iteratively, like, when it first starts out, doesn't look like much, and then a week later is, better. And I'll show you guys a couple clips of this thing and sort of the generation of it. But what I'm going to share with you here is sort of this assemblage that I put together because less than a week after the shooting, I got a DM on Twitter from Brett Weinstein at the Dark Horse podcast. And he and I had talked privately before about COVID and stuff. And so he saw this tweet of mine saying, wow, looks like we got a second shooter. If we line this thing up, it looks like somebody's shooting at these Secret Service guys up on the rooftop. It's, whoa, this changes the whole story. So he sends me a DM, invites me on Dark Horse Podcast, which is a big platform, and he gets, hundreds of thousands of views for every one of his shows. And I go on the show. And so you're going to see here sort of a little clip from that appearance. Less than a week after the shooting, I go on Dark Horse Podcast and we end up talking about it. And sort of this is the evidence that starts floating around the internet. And it, as Tommy said a minute or two ago, eventually two guys cite this in a congressional hearing. Like, this is on the congressional record now. And I'll show you that testimony in a second. So let's take a look at this first, because this is what the congressmen saw that they were testifying to Congress that Congress should look at, is what I'm about to show you here. So let's take a look at this now. Go to share mode. And this also features Brett Weinstein from Dark Horse Podcast.
Thing that said, take a look at what happened.
All right, that's James Copenhaver that I'm highlighting here. So the guy who's clinging to the railing is James Copenhaver. He's been hit now, I guess, in the liver. So he's been hit twice, and he's clinging to the railing as he goes down. All right, so let's take it from the top. We got the guy in white goes down. We got the puff of smoke on the railing all at the same time, and it looks like James Copenhaver's hit pretty early.
Thing that said, take a look at what happened. What happened? Take a look what happened. Take a look what happened.
Because what you've got here, for those who can't see it, is you've got three events in a line, all the most parsimonious explanation for what you've got captured in this single video. We don't have to worry about aligning it or anything like that. Is you've got three kinetic events in a straight line that tells you had an object. I mean, in my mind, and I'm not an expert, it raises questions about what ammunition is involved. Right. But you definitely have the strong suggestion of a line that you could extrapolate from.
Couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
What you know?
So
no doubt, it's going from left to right of my screen, and you can see the puff, the smoke is going the direction of travel. There it is, right? So that would indicate, yeah, I think you're correct. No doubt that it looks like that shot did come from a second shooter.
So based on that aerial photo, that simple, basic aerial photo, and just drawing a line down the back row of the bleachers, saying, okay, well, where the heck would this have come from? Like basic ballistic trajectory stuff, like give me a rod, give me a broom handle, and let's line it up and see where the broom handle points. And oh boy, guess what? It points directly to the counter snipers on the rooftop. All right. So that takes us to sort of the next piece of the puzzle, which is a guy named Greg Lappin. I don't know that you've ever had him on the show, Tommy.
Don't recognize the name.
Greg Lappin is from, let's see, I'll tell you, it's something tactical. Fieldcraft Survival Tactical. And I think Greg's former PD, might be Chicago PD, I forget. But he gets firsthand information. So I don't know what connection he's got, but it seems like he spoke to the guys on the rooftop. Let me play this clip for you, because this is also pivotal, because he's talking about the guys I'm suggesting were getting shot at, right? So I'm suggesting, hey, wait a second. These guys were getting shot at, okay? So let's see what we've got here.
Because this is what everyone thinks is the infamous shot, and it's not.
Take a look at what happened.
All right, so you hear 3 shots, boom, 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 unsuppressed, pretty clear. You see the guy, the counter sniper with the tripod. He's on his optic. He pops his head up, pops right back down. You see the rifle tilt down, tilt up, and he backs up. You see the other guy who's prone actually hunkering his head down and hunkering down. Now, yes, I understand it's their job to stay on scope and engage a threat. I understand that. And shooting, they actually thought, and again, this is inside information coming from the source, they actually thought they were being engaged because they could hear the sonic crack of the rounds passing by them. And they actually thought they were being shot at, not Trump.
So that's huge. They thought they were being shot at, not Trump. So when you see the guy, and again, I said this in the first week, I said, wait a second, these guys are taking fire. I said, that's not the guy who took a shot. That's not him firing his weapon. He's taking fire. He's being shot at. Well, the problem here is there's a tree between these guys and the kid on the roof of AGR. There's no line of sight. So if they can't see him, the kid can't see them, well, then who the hell is shooting at these guys? And from where? And I said this in the first week. I said,
See something that said,
these guys are taking fire.
Right there. You can see him dip
Right?
his head. Yeah, he's dipping his
Right?
head. That was the guy.
See
Yep.
something that said, take a look what happened.
Yeah, he dipped his head. He was
Isn't that
drawn.
wild?
Yeah, for sure.
Dude, they're taking fire. So then they testify that they're taking fire. And so this is on the congressional record. So they said, not only do we think we were taking fire, we think it was suppressed. All right. Now, Tommy had me on the show, I don't know, 2 weeks, 3 weeks after the shooting with Clay Martin. And I played some tape for Clay, some, video recorded from somebody's phone. I shouldn't say tape. I'm old, so I remember tape, but, so somebody's phone thing, and we play back the recording, and I slowed it down to 10%, 10% playback speed. And I said, guys, look at these, that's surprising. You slow this down to 10%. I see suppressed gunfire on the scope, because we got this audio scope thing that shows us the peaks. And Clay is like, dude, that is suppressed gunfire. It's like, there's no doubt that's suppressed gunfire. And so next thing you know, when the police department releases all their body cams, all that stuff that I had identified as having suppressed gunfire, there was no audio released. They didn't release any of the audio up till the shooting, the audible shots of the shooting. It's all suppressed. It's like, why would you need to suppress that, guys? Why do you need to suppress the audio before the shots ring out? It's all suppressed, all the audio. That's because there's suppressed gunfire on that audio tape, on those body cams. It was recorded. We got it from somebody's cell phone. I put it on the scope in Audacity, shared it with Clay Martin. Clay's like, dude, that's suppressed gunfire. And it's before the shots are ringing out. It's like they were being shot at and didn't even know. I don't know if you've ever done anything like this. Have you ever been downrange of suppressed subsonic, like 300 blackout, where, I mean, it doesn't sound like anything. It sounds like like a bird flew by or something. I mean, it just doesn't sound like you're being shot at. It's a completely different experience. If you're shooting subsonic, suppressed 300 blackout, there's no crack, there's no thump. There's no acoustic signature unless you can pick up the audible machination from the weapon itself.
Like the hammer,
right,
yeah.
Right, yeah, that part.
Yeah.
Unless you can pick up that part of it, there's no crack, there's no thump. And these guys testified, we think we're being shot at with suppressed weapons. But this is months after Clay Martin and Tommy and I are sitting there having this conversation. In other words, I picked it up from the audio from somebody's cell phone. I said, dude, I think they're getting shot at with suppressed gunfire. 3 months later, they testified to Congress and said, yes, we swear we think we were being shot at by suppressed gunfire. Nobody picks up the story on Twitter. And that's because all the big names on Twitter work for your old friends at Langley.
Yeah, no, they're all faggots. Hold Dale, comment
Well-
on you. Dale's mind's turning. Hold on, I want to. Dale, we have like the world expert with us, so I'm just.
Well, I wouldn't call me expert, but so I'm thinking about this for a minute. All right, first of all, let's just, for clarity, everybody out there's listening, there's no such thing as a silencer, right? You can't silence a weapon, you can only suppress it.
Right.
And what you're doing is two things are happening. One, you're suppressing basically the blast, the report of the weapon. And two, you're using subsonic ammo. Now, I'm going to assume that the weapon that was used to engage the second weapon was probably the same caliber as the other rifle, right? I would assume. So whatever it was high velocity round, something over 1,300 feet per second. My guess, probably a carbine of some type, over 2,000 feet per second. So even if it's suppressed, this is by my experience, even a suppressor still makes noise. It's a very distinct crack from the muzzle, but it's not as loud as a report from a unsuppressed weapon, but you still get a report. And the person that's not really familiar with, firearms, they may mistake it as something else, like a piece of wood slapping something or something like that. It may not occur to them that's actually a muzzle blast. But I would think that the round is still going to travel fast enough. It's going to travel fast. It's going to travel over 1,300 feet per second. Especially if you're going to
Not if it's subsonic. So if you're using, if I've got two 300 blackout rifles, or I've got one pistol, one rifle, right? They're both AR-15s. One's an AR-15 pistol, one's an AR-15 rifle. They're both in 300 blackout. And I only shoot subsonic with these guns. Like, that's the only ammo I have is subsonic. I don't buy any supersonic.
We're talking about range here, right? So I'm going to assume the second rifle shooter had to have been at some distance away.
Let's look at the graphic. Let's look at this, because this is important. What's important?
I'm following Dale. Let Dale finish.
Yeah. So where would the second rifle most likely be? That's the question. And so
The trees.
okay,
So
the
that's
trees.
the red line. You see that red line? So
Yeah.
the red line is the trajectory that goes down that back row. When I drew it kind of backwards, right, and said, okay, so where is this coming from? Well, it splits the Secret Service guys who are on the roof, like was right past them as we just saw them flinch, right? And then it goes to the trees. It's like a tree line back here. And I said to Clay Martin, I said, I feel kind of awkward saying, you know, I think the shooter was in the trees. He was like, why, man? We were up in the trees in World War II. He's like, what are you talking about? He says, stick me in a ghillie suit in a tree. You will never, ever find me. Nobody's going to know I'm up there.
Yeah.
Somebody was in the tree, bro, with
No,
an AR-15.
Yeah, I think there's a second shooter, and I think he's got a suppressed weapon. And I think what will happen is they're gonna hear the they're gonna they're gonna hear the report after the round passes by or makes contact, right? Okay, just how it works. Even though it's suppressed, it's subsonic. But they did hear the round go by because otherwise, why would got the guy flinch? He knew the bullet went by. And because he flinched, right? So then he probably heard the report, but he probably didn't associate that report with that second shooter. He probably thought it was from the first shooter. So that would make sense. So so we're talking about different ranges here. So I would agree. I'm gonna agree with you. It sounds like the shot probably came from the tree. Same range, probably suppressed. That's why they didn't hear the report. And they probably heard the report, but they probably thought it was a report from what we thought was a primary shooter at that point. But no doubt about it, the guy experienced the bullet going by, which you do. No matter what kind of bullet it is, you will sense it going by. It's breaking air, and it's going to make some kind, and that's why you can see him ducking. So yeah,
That's
he
right.
knew he was being shot at. He probably thought
Here's
it
the
was
testimony. Here's the testimony. So this is they showed up, by the way, with lawyers. So when they gave their congressional testimony, they had their attorneys with them. Now, I don't know if the attorneys were provided by the Secret Service or not. I don't know if they were, private personal attorneys or Secret Service provided. But let me read this to the audience. So this is the testimony of the guy who was up on that rooftop. In fact, I think it's the guy, the roof that was closest to AGR, that I'm certain of. And it's one of those two guys, either the guy who ducked and pulled back or the guy who was already prone, lying down on the rooftop. He says it sounded honestly like it was suppressed, like it had a suppressor on it, because it wasn't like a loud boom that you would expect being in a 200 yards away. It was muffled. Then the House GAC majority, this is the committee, understood. Thank you. And I think you said in your opening statement that you, in response to those shots fired, you began looking to try to find the source of I think they mean shots fired. Is that right? And then the same guy says, when I heard the shots fired, when I logically assumed that it was shots fired, I immediately went to my radio to start emergency action for the shift. But then as soon as I was finished with my radio transmission, I continued observing in that area, went right back to my weapon. All right, so this is probably the guy on the right. Now, there's another huge thing that happens here, Dale, that is major. And there's a news reporter who's there, and her name is Vanessa Broussard. And Vanessa Broussard is working for Right Side Broadcasting at the time. And so she's up on the platform, the broadcast platform that's kind of in the middle of the audience there. And she's got the microphone in her hand. And as it's happening, she's like, oh my God, we got to go live. We got to go live. We got to go live. So they go live with Vanessa Broussard, and the cameras are rolling, right? The RSBN cameras are rolling. The NTD cameras are rolling. Everybody's cameras are rolling. And listening to what she said, I zoom in to the counter snipers, the Secret Service guys who were up on that rooftop that just flinched and everything, and watch what happens when we put together what she said and what happens when we zoom in on the footage to watch what's actually happening. Take a look at this. This is going to blow your mind. This is kind of smoking gun right here.
No, he didn't. He did not. Secret Service quickly erupted. You can see the snipers on the building behind the podium, aiming at the trees. If you look to our left, there are trees in the distance, and that seems to be where the gunfire is coming from.
There's trees in the distance, and that seems to be where the gunfire is coming from.
Yeah, you can see
Whoa. Right?
literally traversing right, looking for that shot.
He didn't. He did not.
Yeah.
Secret Service quickly erupted. You can see the snipers on the building behind the podium aiming at the trees. If you look to our left, there are trees in the distance, and that seems to be where the gunfire is coming from.
Again, I found her audio and that video weeks later. In other words, the drawing, this stupid little drawing, this crayon thing, lined it up. And then we get the testimony. Then we get Vanessa Broussard, right? It's like everything lined up. And it lined up the first couple days. It's like you just draw a line down the back railing and it goes right between these two guys to the tree. Then we find a photograph of the cops climbing up a tree with a ladder. They got a 10-foot ladder going up a tree. Were they looking for a cat? Did somebody lost their cat at the venue, or they're apple picking? July is early for apple picking. Is this mind blowing or what, bro? Is this crazy?
Well, yeah, but I'm not surprised. I got to be honest.
Well, right. Well,
I'm not surprised, man. So, yeah, I fully believe that there's some people complicit in this thing, and this was not. This was an organized assassination that had many components to it. No doubt about it. Yeah, no doubt. Your evidence to me lines up. Everything makes a lot of sense. That suppressed weapon. The fact that the guy sensed the bullet going by he flinched.
right,
The report from the suppressor, okay, which you're going to hear that suppressor 200 meters away. It's still
want me
going
to play it? Let me play something for you guys because this is wild. After the event, Garand Thumb goes out with 300 blackout, ducks behind a berm, and they hold up a microphone. Mikey holds up a microphone, and they're ducked behind a berm, and there's a guy shooting down range. And they capture the audio, and I want you guys to see their reaction to the audio because it's the reaction to it that's kind of wild. It's like, again, they're hearing a whole bunch of different stuff. They shoot, 10 different rounds, 8 different rounds. Watch the reaction they have to the 300 blackout subsonic.
What you know about rolling down in the deep when your brain goes numb?
Okay, 300 black. No way. What?
Yep.
Round's complete. What? Michael, look at the impacts. Round's complete. Okay, 300 black. No way.
Exactly. That's why he ducked, because that's what
I
he
would
heard.
die.
Well, they went right between them, by the way. They testified. One of the guys said he thought it was on his right. The other guy said he thought it was on his left. So basically the rounds went right between them. They missed. It goes down that back railing and hits the railing. So so now the question is, well, wait a second. If we got a shooter in the trees who's shooting suppressed subsonic, meaning there's not going to be any audio signature on the video tapes that are at the main venue. There's too much noise. We're not going to hear that. Pew, we're not going to hear that. Did David Dutch get shot by the guy in the trees? Did James Copenhaver get shot by the guy in the trees? We've got 2 shooters now. None of the rounds were recovered from the victims.
That's my next question. What about the forensics? Because that would, yeah, see, that's just too weird, right?
Nothing recovered. No round. Not from the guy. Okay, so Corey Comparatori, the guy who was killed, they didn't recover the round? No.
Yeah, they did. They did.
Well, I'm telling you, they did.
They did.
Of course. But the public is told, golly, we didn't recover.
To me, that is the answer. If they're not showing you, And they're not quite, and they can hunt down grandmas from January 6th, 5 years later.
Right.
But we just
Right.
don't know what happened when they shot the ex-president and the
Have
president
nothing.
candidate. We just don't know.
No,
Well, that's
can't
your
find
answer.
any ballistic
There's
evidence.
no
Can't
answer.
find
It's
anything.
the answer. They did it. They did it. I don't know who took the cookies, but the entire jar's gone, and the kid looks really sketchy. I'm like, I don't know where it is, but you did it.
It's pretty crazy, man.
One of the questions that I have to think about is, so, okay, let's just say it's a two-man team, sniper team, all right?
Yeah.
And let's say, the primary shooter, he was the patsy. They set him up, right? And the other guy was a pro. Now, I don't think he was a pro, and I'll tell you why I don't think he's a pro. Because if he was a pro and he was, I'm just hypothetical. Let's just say he was an agency shooter, agency sniper. He was the pro. I doubt seriously that pro would have missed those two Secret Service guys on the roof. Okay, if he was a pro at that range with a suppressed weapon,
I agree with you.
he would have
I
hit
agree.
him. Right? So who was that second shooter? Was he just another patsy that just had a sexed up gun and he missed? But I do believe
I've got an idea. I've got an idea about it. It's for, it's like a hypothesis. It's not strong. It's just, loosey goosey. But one of the other aspects here is that the kid who's on the rooftop, all right, so we call crooks, right? Some people think is this guy Max Urich. I have a feeling he might be from Odessa. I don't think his name is Thomas Crooks. I don't think his name is Max Urich. I think both of those are wild goose chases. I think his name is like Sergei Bolemikov, and he comes from Odessa.
Yeah.
And so here's the issue with the kid on the roof. The alignment of the kid on the roof is with the other Secret Service counter snipers, not Trump. And it's another illusion. Nobody shows you this. Nobody shows you the alignment. And it's one of these things where he's on a roof that's got a 3-inch standing seam, right? A 3-inch standing seam is kind of uncomfortable to lie across, right? So let's see. I want to see if I can find the alignment thing here. Bear with me. So the way the kid is oriented on the rooftop, the orientation of the shooter is filmed. In other words, we've got video footage of the kid on the rooftop and his orientation of his body. The issue is the orientation of his body is not towards Trump at the podium. The orientation of his body is towards the other Secret Service counter snipers on the other rooftop. His job, all right, was to take out the other counter snipers. Why would you just have one guy in the trees shooting at one pair of counter snipers and let the other pair enjoy their ice cream? No, I need another shooter to take out the other pair of counter snipers. That's my boy on the rooftop. My boy on the rooftop's orientation is directly at the other counter snipers, and it's filmed by the helicopter. In other words, the helicopter flies over there. If the kid was oriented towards Trump, it would look like this, right? His body would have been, let me see if I get the right one here. His body would have been like this, across the standing 3-inch seams. He's not found like that. He's not filmed like this. We've got a helicopter that flies over. I think it's Chopper Dan is the local Pittsburgh guy. So we got Chopper Dan flies over and films the body, right? So the body's on the rooftop dead after having been shot, right, by the counter snipers, and they fly over him. But the issue is, let's see if I can find the orientation. I can't find it. But the net of it is orientation. The body's on the roof and it's abandoned. Let's see if I can have abandoned. So they abandoned the body on the rooftop. No, I can't find it. But the net of this is they leave the body up there, and the orientation of the body is not towards Trump. It's towards the other Secret Service guys. Well, that's interesting because he gets shot in the mouth, right? The kid gets shot in the mouth, right? And it comes out of the back of his neck. Well, what I did was I went and I got a foam head at Target. Right? If you go to Target, you go to the arts department of Target, they sell these styrofoam heads for women to put their wigs on and I guess do the curls on the wigs or whatever. So I pick up a styrofoam head. I bring it home. I get a ballistic trajectory rod, also known as an arrow, and I insert it in the mouth where we see the photo of the dead kid's got the wound comes in and the autopsy confirms it. And I orient it so that it comes out where we see the exit wound. Okay, so I've got a model of that. And the next thing I did was I said, okay, so if it came in here and it came out there, where did this guy get shot from? And it kind of looked like he was getting shot from above. And I'm saying, come on, don't get me back into helicopters again. We've had enough with the helicopters. Don't tell me he got shot by a helicopter or a drone. The Anderol story is a whole nother part of this. So what I did was I took the head with the arrow and I said, oh, wait a second. What if he was looking through his rifle? How would the orientation have looked? Let's take a look at this. It turns out that the shooter on the rooftop was aiming at the man who killed him when he was killed. Tommy, have you seen this? Watch this.
What you know about rolling down? When your brain goes numb, you can call a man a freeze. When these people talk too much, put that shit in slow motion. Yeah, I feel like
That's one of my 300 blackout rifles, by the way. That's a Daniel Defense AR-15 and 300 black. So the net of this is the kid was aiming at the guy who shot him in the mouth. Not Trump. Not Trump. If the kid had been aiming at Trump, that's 20 degrees off to his right. He would have been shot not in the mouth and out the back of the neck. So as we study this, we realize, holy moly, the kid on the roof was aiming at the other counter snipers. I use zip ties, by the way, as my empty chamber indicator. I learned that from Mikulek. Jerry Mikulek uses the zip ties too, like me. I use the day glow ones. I like those. So that's how I know my chamber's empty. So the kid was aiming at the counter snipers. Now, it doesn't mean he didn't shoot at Trump, but it introduces doubt. It says, so wait a second. If the kid was aiming at the counter snipers, was that his assignment? Was he on the rooftop to take out the other counter snipers, and the actual shots at Trump did not come from the roof? Is that possible? And the answer is yes, it's possible. And the reason is the crack thump measurements, Dale, were not the same for the first 3 shots and the next 5. And there's no escaping that. They were off by, one was like 2.32 seconds and the other's like 0.212 seconds. And it was consistent. It's like the first 3 shots were clearly one crack thump measurement, and then the next 5 were clearly another one. That's like that's 2 weapons. We got 2 shooters audibly, and then potentially other suppressed weaponry. And we got Vanessa Broussard saying it looks like it's coming from the trees. We got this guy ducking and then turning towards the trees, testifying it was suppressed, testifying they were being shot at. And so there's 2 congressmen, Representative Eli Crane, who's a former Navy SEAL sniper. Okay, so went to Buds and then went to the sniper school after that, becomes a Navy SEAL sniper. He testifies in front of Congress with Corey Mills. Corey Mills is 82nd Airborne, somewhat controversial guy. He sells flashbang stuff today. He's got do you know that? Did you know that Corey Mills has a flashbang company? Yeah, Corey Mills sells flashbangs. That's his business. So the two of them testified and citing this evidence. So let me put this out there, and then we'll turn it back to Dale to see what Dale's thoughts are on this, because when they bring this stuff up in Congress and this is under oath, this becomes part of the congressional record now. I mean, this is kind of a big deal. So let me play this for you, Dale, and then we'll kind of flip it to you to see what you think about all this monkey business. Here we go. This is one of the congresswomen. This is Congresswoman Laurel Lee talking to Representatives Eli Crane and Corey Mills, both congressmen. Here we go.
Utilizing going forward, particular witnesses you think that we should have, any thoughts you have about what and whom we should be bringing in to testify?
One of the videos that I've seen online is from a gentleman named John Cullen, who talks about the possibility of a second shooter, and he shows a video, Miss Lee, where in this video he shows a bullet traveling down a path and the disruption that round supposedly makes, and then flies into one of the stadium fence railings. That shows that it would have been very, very difficult for that round to travel the path that it did had it come from Thomas Crooks. I think that you need to bring this gentleman in, see his evidence, and if you don't think it holds water, then you need to make that assessment. John Cullen is somebody I think you guys should bring in here and look at the video evidence that he has of a bullet traveling, in a trajectory, in a path that would not have been able to come from Thomas Crooks.
And I'd like to just echo this. The one thing that doesn't lie is bullet trajectory and also the coefficients that it carries. And I think that Eli and I had talked about this prior to the hearing, but also multiple times about John Cullen's video that does show, if you look at people who were injured and the actual line of sight and where it was to the stage, just kind of what the possibilities were and how many shots were truly taken.
The most parsimonious explanation for what you've got captured in this single video, we don't have to worry about aligning it or anything like that, is you've got 3 kinetic events in a straight line. That tells you had an object, but you definitely have the strong suggestion of a line that you could extrapolate from.
What you know about rolling.
So there we go. Congressional testimony. Citing that stuff right there, like saying, this looks pretty compelling. You might want to check this out. And it gets covered up. All right, so that leads me to believe the big guy is using this as leverage. All right, so he's got 2 choices. Tell everybody what actually happened and lose whatever leverage he has. Or like Vegas, right? So we kind of learn from MBS. It's like, keep it quiet and let's leverage this thing. If he keeps the truth quiet and they tell everybody it's a kid on the roof and he's 20 years old and the kid's dead, he can leverage this thing. And next thing you know, he's sitting in the White House
I think that's what
with Zelensky saying, you got no cards. You got no cards. Why don't you just shut your mouth before I blow up your whole neighborhood, right? Your wife's home, right? Your kids are home, right?
Yeah, no.
Where did that come from? Right? All of a sudden, Levin, right? What's his name? Mark Levin or something is like, wait a second, MAGA's not with Russia. Wait, what's going on here? Like he was flipping out. Why? Did Zelensky, did the last administration approach, and this is going to explain why it's not a pro, Dale. You go to Zelensky, one of Biden's henchmen, when it goes to Zelensky and says, no more Bugatti Chirons, no more summers in Monaco, no more yacht charter, right? That's all drying up. The pallets of cash to come in on the C-17, that's all drying up, buddy. You have a choice. If our team wins, the money just keeps coming. If that team wins, kiss it goodbye. Are you a man or are you a mouse? Don't you have losers in prison who are in prison for life that you don't give a shit if they live or die? Yes, you do. You give them an opportunity to earn their freedom. This mission succeeds, they win their freedom. They die, nobody gives a shit. Sergei Belmakov from Odessa is serving 78 years in the Ukrainian penitentiary. They offer him a choice. Here's your mission. You take out this guy, you take out that guy. What the? They show up with a red dot to take a 150-yard shot in a 15-mile-an-hour crosswind? What the?
Yeah.
You know how many scopes I got here? I mean, why would you? I got $250 scopes that are, not bad for $250. These kids using a red dot at 152 yards in a 15-mile-an-hour crosswind. What the?
Heaven's Harvest Prepper Food. 72 servings per pail. 25 years shelf life. I've had the owner Clayton on the show before. He's a God-fearing, America-loving patriot. Get one of these, get a couple of them, throw them in your basement. It's good to have it, not need it, than to need it and not have it. If you don't want to do that, you can get their seeds. You can plant your own garden, so you don't even have to keep buying them. You can just get the goods and start your own, or you can even get freeze-dried fruits and vegetables like bananas, apples, strawberries, and raspberries. They support the show. It's an honest product. It's a good safety measure to have, and they keep my show free for you. So I'd implore you guys to please go to heavensharvest.com, use the link in the description, promo code TPC. Axios Fitness Coaching is a premium resource for holistic strength and conditioning services. Axios is best known for the Training Club, capital T, capital C, an exclusive community that prioritizes accountability, technique, diet, and nutrition. Everything you need to do to take action against the decay of the modern world. Whether you're looking to improve your physique, build strength, or just take care of your health and fitness, Axios will provide you with the solution that is effective and simple to execute. All you need to do is complete the intake survey, and you can see if you're a good candidate for the training club or any other of the services. And it's going to sponsor the show. So, one company falls off, another one arises. So if you guys like the show, you want to work out, throw the show a couple shekels. Go take the survey. Thank you so much, guys.
Higher ultraviolet exposure is associated with lower mortality. The United Kingdom is a high latitude and low sunlight country. Researchers there collected data on over 360,000 participants in a study of UV exposure via solarium use. When compared with non-users, solarium users had 15% risk lowered of all-cause mortality, 23% lower risk of cardiovascular mortality, 14% lower risk of cancer mortality, and a 12% lower risk of non-cardiovascular, non-cancer mortality. In other words, all other causes. Quoting the researchers, our study adds to the growing evidence that the benefits of UV exposure outweigh the risks in low sunlight environments. A link to the original publication is available in the box below the video. Get some UV light this winter. Immerse yourself in the tranquility of the blue. Visit a Blue Room soon. www.blueroom.com.
Just for Dale, I did say I'd make a comment at an hour because it's in the wee hours. We can keep going. 100%. We can keep going. I just wanted for courtesy give Dale an out.
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good
Yeah.
right now.
Right.
Yeah. So I was thinking, while we're talking here, I was kind of think a little bit. Why would Crooks orient his weapon towards the second counter sniper team when the objective is to take out Trump? Trump, you could take him out with one shot, and everything else is secondary to that. The snipers, right? There's no reason to take out the snipers first and then try to take out Trump, because then he's already gone. You're going to miss the objective. So I'm kind of curious about that, unless the guy, but it can't be the guy that was the number. It can't be the secondary shooter with the suppressor, because he didn't have line of sight on Trump. He had line of sight on the sniper team. The primary sniper, Crook, if that's who he was, the primary, he had a clean shot on Trump. Why would he take a shot at the other second counter sniper team? I agree. He probably took one in the mouth from the sniper team. They were probably facing each other, and the other sniper won. So it does sound a little bit like amateur hour. It doesn't sound like it's a solid plan. Maybe to your point, maybe this was one of those deals where, hey guys, you wanna earn your freedom, go get this job done. But they sent a couple amateurs out there to do what should have been done by a professional. But they weren't professionals. But I find it interesting, intriguing that maybe Trump is leveraging this. Maybe he knows the real deal, and
I think he does because
yeah.
Dan Bongino was too, he was like insistent that there's no evidence that there's a second shooter. And he was saying this to Eli Crane. And Eli Crane is saying, no, I'm not willing to say that there's not a second shooter. And Dan Bongino's like, no, there's no evidence there's a second shooter. And it's like, Dan, unless the president said, I need you to help put the kibosh on this thing. If I'm going to leverage this and get a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine, I'm gonna squeeze. If it's in the earth in the Ukraine, it's ours. What the hell? Right? We're going to take all your minerals. We're going to take all your magnets. We're going to take if it's rare earth, we're taking it. And everybody was looking like, what the heck? Where did this come from? Oh, he tried to kill him. Oh, well, then that would explain things. It's like MBS rounding everybody up at the Ritz-Carlton on November 5th. Yeah. And everybody saying, oh, MBS has lost his mind. It's no, it makes perfect sense if you know the backstory. Was there a guy in one of these windows? That was the only other trajectory that would work, Dale, would be it has to line up almost identically with the kid on the roof. So, now, the thing is, these windows don't open, supposedly. So it would require somebody to kind of remove the glazing strip and take the glass out, something like that. But we've got weird photos of these windows. Like there are images of them where they look a little strange. It's like, well, what the hell's going on there? So was there a shooter in one of those windows below the kid on the roof? All right, and we got a shooter up and a shooter down. And we got bang, 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 bang. It all sounds like it's coming from the same place. Because if Trump is looking in that direction, he's turning towards the Jumbotron, the shot can't come from the water tower. It can't. All right, the water tower's in the way. It blocked. There's no line of sight, and it would have split his head open. All right, so in order to clip his ear, it has to come from where this orange line, I was just showing you guys a second ago, it has to come from this orange line in that direction. Otherwise, it splits his head open. He's turning towards the Jumbotron as he gets shot. Had he been looking at the Jumbotron, he would have taken it in the left side of the face. So he's turning towards, clips his ear. It can't come from any other trajectory. It has to be, if it's not a shot from that rooftop kid, the shot that hit his ear had to have come from one of those two windows. That's the only other option. Can't come from anywhere else. The other thing that's interesting is the shot that hit his ear cannot be the same shot that hit the railing. And this is from the 3D thing. So we do this 3D model, and what we find out with the 3D model is that the shot that hit that back railing doesn't line up with Trump's ear. So that, this whole thing with, 2 points make a line, right? So that means the shot that hit Trump's ear and the shot that hit the railing, those 2 points would need to line up and go right back to the AGR rooftop, right? But that's not how it works. So let's take a look at this, Tommy. Check this out. I don't know if you saw this, Tommy. I didn't have this when we met with Clay, so you haven't seen this. This is wild. So this is a result of this 3D model that this guy did. So that I put out this all points bulletin thing. I said, hey, we need somebody to help us model this in 3D. This is called photogrammetry. This is when the photographs and the 3D model line up.
Ooh.
That's how you know it's on. That's how you know your 3D model's accurate, is when the photos and the model come together. So watch this. This is kind of wild. had the round come from the rooftop of AGR and hit Trump's ear, it goes below the guy in the corner's arm. It obviously can't hit the railing, or it would have had to have traversed his torso. It would have been through and through, in the abdomen and out the back. There's no way. That didn't happen. This guy walked away. Now, he did get shards, so there was sort of, when the round hit the railing behind him, there was some fragmentation that hit him in the butt and hit him in the arm. But the notion that the round that comes from AGR hits the Trump's ear, it can't hit that railing. So what that means is we're hearing a shot coming from the direction of AGR. The round that was fired at that railing was synchronized fire and suppressed, because we see it hit at the same moment we hear something. But that's 2 rounds being fired and we only hear 1.
Well, yeah, and exactly.
So that explains. So now that 300 blackout subsonic model starts to work, meaning, wow. So this is 2 guys with communication. So in other words, you can literally just have your cell phone sitting right next to you, and you and I, you're 400 yards away from me, but we're shooting at the same time, and we do a countdown. You ready? 3, 2, 1, fire. You're suppressed and I'm not. Nobody's going to know you're there. I've got the gun that goes boom, 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 and you're up in a tree with a 300 blackout subsonic? Nobody even knows you're a shooter. Nobody knows you're there. I'm up on the roof going bang, 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 and everybody, rooftop shooter, somebody get on a horse. Ta-da! Everybody to the roof, to the roof, to the roof. I think you got a cop downstairs. I think you got a guy in uniform who was compromised. I think his name is Mike Mirko. It's based on evidence that I have. All right, so this isn't libel. I'd place the guy under citizen's arrest and give him There's a guy named Mike Mirko who was in that building alone. Greg Nickel left them alone. I think Mike Mirko, who used to do work with the FBI, may have been the inside shooter. Now, I could be wrong. The whole thing could be Ukrainian. The whole thing could be Venezuelan for all I know. But I have a hard time believing that a 20-year-old kid and his buddies showed up with 2 vehicles laden with explosives, a van and a Hyundai Sonata. Both laden with it. It's like, how's one guy show up with 2 vehicles with explosives? That's tricky, right? What, are you gonna call Uber and go back and get the other vehicle and then drive back up? I mean, come on. And that's not, this is being covered up by the administration. Why would he do that if not for leverage?
Mm-hmm.
He's embarrassed? Come on. He's not embarrassed. He's using this for leverage. And when I saw him in the Oval Office with Zelensky, well, there you go, guys. I mean, this is like November 5th is to Vegas. That Zelensky meeting in the White House for me said, oh boy, if this guy isn't now suspect number 1, I don't know who is. And I think that the administration, the former administration, Avril Haines, Obama, Victoria Nuland, I think they made this possible by putting the suggestion in his ear. And if he sends prisoners, like you said, these aren't pros. They're guys who are willing to, they don't care. Let them out, take a shot, and you set them free. Tell them you'll put $1 million in their account if they're successful. Put 10 million. What the hell difference? They're going to get killed. Tell them you give them 50 million each. They're not going to, And then if they succeed, you just don't give them the 50 million. You say, yeah, that's not what I said. I said I was going to give you 50,000. What are you going to do about it? You're in Pittsburgh now. Who are you going to tell? Pittsburgh PD? You're Ukrainian without a passport in America. You just tried to kill the president. I don't know. I could be all wrong, but there was somebody up in that tree shooting at those guys on the roof, and that person missed. Those rounds went and hit the corner, possibly hit David Dutch and Copenhagen because we have no recovered rounds.
Yeah.
In other words, that would explain it. If those guys are hit with 300 blackout, they got a 210 grain round in their liver, not a 55 grain. Big difference, right? All my 300, here's 300 blackout. 300 blackout, 210 grain. A 210 grain bullet, right? A little itty bitty brass case. 223 is, most guys are shooting 55 grain. I mean, I like the 77, but they're hard to find, man. You can't, you go to Cabela's, you go to Bass Pro, rarely do you find 77 grain 223. So most of these guys are shooting 55 grain. Big difference. I mean, this is 4 times the mass. Almost, right? 210 versus 55. It's almost 4 times the mass. So at a range of 200 yards or so, yeah, you got to arc it a bit, but man, this hit something. In fact, the telehandler got hit. Tommy, you remember this? The telehandler got hit and the oil sprayed out all over the place.
Oh yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
So the oil sprays out all over the place, and it almost seems like that is telling. In other words, where did the round come from that hit the telehandler that sprayed the stuff all over the place? And that becomes that becomes evidential. You can tell something from this. Let me show you what I mean. Hang on. Here we go. Bear with me.
You good? For the thing it hit with the oil, what's the? I mean, do you have any idea like what the thickness is of the? I would imagine metal. I mean, wouldn't that give something away?
I'll show you that.
Can't hit that. You can't hit it with a BB and burst it.
All right, let's take a look at this. Hang on. Here we go. All right, so you've got this oil stain here. So the telehandler is in the lower left-hand corner here, and there's an oil stain that kind of goes down and to the right behind the bleachers. You see this oil stain on the grass?
Yeah.
And on the pavement, right? There's a pavement that's got oil all over it, and the oil stain is out on the grass, right? It's like a big oval over here. Well, the telehandler gets hit, and the oil should spray in the direction of where the round came from, that hit it, right? So we've got hydraulic. Let's see. Here we go. So the hydraulic reservoir was hit, and the guy who repaired it sent me images of where it was hit and how it was hit on Twitter. Check this out. So this is from the repair shop that they sent the what is it, JCB telehandler or something like that. So can you see the round? Do you see the little hole?
Mm-hmm.
You guys see that? So there's a round over here, right there. So it got hit. Now that's a pipe. That's a pipe. Let me open up another one here. So we get real close on this thing and can see. Okay, here you go. Where do you see this? This is pretty cool. So this is the pipe that gets hit on the telehandler that starts spraying oil all over the place. Check this out. Look at that. All right, so that's a metal pipe. It's carrying hydraulic fluid up to like a box. It's like a stop box type thing. It's like a valve thing. Was that hole made with a 55 grain 223, or was that hole made with a 210 grain 300 blackout? Hard to say without a reference point. But, again, it's an interesting piece of evidence. I wish I could find this this animated GIF that I did about the oil. I'll find it. Hang on. It's worth finding. For some reason, I don't understand why I can't get this to play. All right, we'll have to do it this way. Here we go. All right, what you're seeing here is the stain, the oil stain behind the bleachers. It's not changing, is it? No. There we go. All right, you would expect that if the shot came from AGR, the oil would have sprayed back towards the direction from where the shot came from. So I drew a line back to AGR from the telehandler. So if that's where the shot came from that hit the telehandler, well, the oil should have sprayed back in the direction from where the shot came from. And what we just saw was it wasn't a glancing shot. It's not like the shot hit the side of the pipe and the oil went out the side. It hit the pipe, like it made a hole in the pipe and the oil went out of the hole. But the hole wasn't pointing towards AGR, was it? No, it was not. Where did the oil end up spraying? The oil ended up spraying here, not there. The oil's down here. Where's that pointing towards? The trees. You'd expect it to have sprayed here. But that's not what we see. We see a big oil stain on the grass and on the ground right there. That means the round that hit the telehandler most likely came from the trees. Interesting, right?
Yeah. So that begs the question: who's suppressing all this information, and why? Is it the Trump team that's leveraging it, or is it something more?
So.
I think that's the only thing that makes sense. I mean, before Trump wins, you obviously Biden administration because they're complicit. But why Trump team? And it's almost May. Why? I think no. I think I hadn't thought about that.
It's got to be.
It's leverage.
But why wouldn't the Biden administration, when that happened, they're obviously they were aware of all this.
They're guilty. They facilitated it.
So why did they allow that information? How did they let Trump figure this out? I guess why didn't they do a better job at cleaning
They
up?
caught the guy. So assume they captured the guy who was in the tree.
We also don't know how much that they did clean up. I mean, they probably did a pretty good job at metaphorically sanitizing everything. And that might also be it. The Trump administration might be using it for leverage. They might also be piecing together fragments of hard drives from the NSA or pro-Trump factions within the government.
Dude, it just could be as simple as you see them with a ladder going up a tree.
Yeah.
What if they get up the tree and there's a dude up in the tree and they're like, "You're under arrest," and they point their guns at him, like, "Get out of the tree, you asshole!" And they get him out of the tree and they take him into custody. Well, now they've got a guy in custody that nobody knows about. And they interview him and they find out that the guy's from Odessa. Well, do you want to, is it really important to tell everybody in the, does the New York Times really need to know this right this minute? Or might we be able to use this to stop a war? Right? And if Trump says, "Look, I'm going to put the screws to this little bastard and we're going to end this war. And I'm going to end up with all the magnetic material in all of Ukraine." All right. If they've got rare earth materials, it's now ours. And he's going to take the deal. There's going to be a drone accident and they're all going to die. And it's going to be tragic. It's going to be a tragic accident. Very tragic. I think he put the screws to Zelensky. Zelensky came to Trump Tower back in September. I think he said, "We know what you did. Here's what's going to happen next. I'm going to win the presidency. Or my friend Eric Prince here has already been paid." I gave Eric $25 million.
Yeah, he's going to kill you.
And if I die, guess who dies next? Guess who dies next? Eric's already been paid. It's already been paid. This is my friend Eric Prince. You know Eric, right? This is my friend Eric. He's already cashed the check. Anything happens to me. What's your son's name? Kirill? Your daughter's what? Oksana? She's 20, right? She just got her license. Is this you and your son playing in the backyard, this photo that we have here? That's Kirill, isn't it? You want to play games? Who do you think you're effing with, son? I will kill your family before you get home.
I think the leverage hypothesis is the only one that actually makes sense. And
everybody called off the dogs. Everybody drops. It's like a hot potato, like it never happened.
Yeah.
And Congress puts out a report and says, well, the Secret Service sucks. What? Come on. These guys are testifying they're being shot at by suppressed weaponry. We got former SEAL snipers saying, if you look at it's kind of apparent. Dude, you know how good Langley is, man. Where do you find out about COVID? Where do you find out that COVID was a cover-up for bird flu and the vaccines weren't even for SARS-CoV-2? Your friends in Langley are amazingly good. Very talented group. Very talented.
Yeah.
I'm a little better. I mean, it takes me a time to figure this stuff out. And I'm really pissing them off because I don't steal shit and I don't hack into anything. I just keep figuring it out, and that's not illegal. And it's driving them crazy. So there's your Butler story, my friend.
That's a good one. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I can't say I'm surprised.
Right.
I'm just kind of disgusted and appalled that we are governed by these rats. And there's so much more. Me and Tommy had a podcast the other night with the child trafficking, and and we had a source on there that without a doubt he's like implicating people at the government level, at the very highest levels that are involved in this shit. We can look at history, man. The CIA and the drug and the proliferation with the drug. Look, how about this one? Operation Mockingbird. That's an obvious one. It's like, who is doing that, and why would you do that? It's manipulation. To what end, and why would you do that to American citizens? You're supposed to be here to defend us and protect us, not manipulate us. And so,
it's worse than you think, though.
No,
I think the Mockingbird thing is far worse than anybody realizes, to the extent that this alternative media, the people who are on the Twitter thing and, with a million followers and whatever, dude,
well, of course that's how it would evolve. Yeah, no, and I don't know if you and I or me and someone else talked about this, but yeah, no, the CIA, the people capable and willing of doing Operation Mockingbird, it didn't just get to 2005 and they went, oh shucks, no one's watching the news. And good run, guys. No, they and it's admirable. They adapted and they overcame. They went, all right, talking heads on Twitter, podcasts, iTunes, Facebook.
Well, think about what happened. Think about what happened at the beginning of COVID. Right at the beginning of COVID, I'm a whistleblower. I come forward and said, hey, I built the mapping system that Johns Hopkins used to map COVID, and there's not 10 people dead in Hong Kong, Shanghai, or Beijing. Pretty simple story. It's not that complicated. Not one news outlet picks it up. Meanwhile, I'm talking to Laura Ingraham, and I'm introduced to Laura Ingraham from a guy in Switzerland, in Geneva, where the WHO is headquartered. Says, hey, you want to meet Laura Ingraham? And then she works me like a spearmint rhino stripper. She strings me out all the way to the election. I think we're going to break the story. I keep sharing all kinds of stuff with her about the influenza thing. She strings me out all the way to the election. And she's the one who said, well, we just called it. What are you going to do? Time to move on. And I'm like, son of a bitch.
You bitch.
You lived in Russia, didn't you? You adopted two Russian boys, didn't you? You speak the language fluently. Maybe we should call you Evelyn Salt. Laura Ingraham. They're all spooks, Dale. Every one of them. They work for the agency, and they may not even know it. Because, did you see the house that Brett Baer put up for sale? The most expensive house in Washington. $35 million house. It's unbelievable. It's like, dude, you sit there and tell the news, and you're living in the biggest, most expensive house in Washington, and you're trying to tell me you're not James Bond? Get the F out of here. How do you have the biggest house in Washington? Brett Baer. Laura Ingraham, 25 million a year. If anybody told me in college, dude, just join the agency, and by the time you're 40 something, you'll be on the news making 20 million a year. If anybody told me that, I probably would have signed up and said, get the hell out. Really?
Of course.
That's how they do this? You mean if you pay people 20 million, 25 million a year, they'll say whatever the hell you tell them to say because they're afraid you're going to cut that off? Yeah. Now, Laura is different. Laura lived in St. Petersburg, speaks the language fluently, adopted 2 Russian boys. You didn't know that backstory.
I did. Actually, I did. That is something I happen to know, yeah.
Okay, so, but where does she come from? She joined Fox the summer before the Vegas shooting. She joined Fox like June 2017. She's 60 years old. Where the hell did she come from? Where'd Kayleigh McEnany come from? Kayleigh McEnany shows up April 8th, 2020. Ta-da! Harvard educated. She's got a JD, blue eyes, blonde hair, and she's married. Sorry, guys. Don't even go there. In fact, I think her husband's like on the Mets or something. Her husband's like an athlete, a major athlete guy. Kayleigh McEnany knows all about Operation Crimson Contagion. She's holding it in her hands. She's one of the greatest assets ever to come out of Langley. They said, Mr. President, don't worry. She's got this. She's got America wrapped around her finger. Watch. She goes to the podium, takes command, boom. Kayleigh McEnany is holding Operation Crimson Contagion in her hands as she's telling everybody it's COVID. That's how good she is. They're everywhere, bro. They're everywhere. And the legitimate people, there's a handful. There's a handful that are genuinely curious, like Tommy, who genuinely digs into this stuff and isn't afraid to have anybody on the show and talk about anything. Right? I come on the show and tell Tommy half his other guests or 3/4 of his guests are full of shit and are spooks. Okay. Right. And Tommy's like, yeah, what am I going to do? I'm on a podcast.
Yeah, you're all adult.
Right. So it's wild, though, when you see this evidence stacked up the way we just looked at it, and you're like, how could they cover this up? Why would they cover it up? It has to be that Trump wants to use this as leverage. I mean, who else could cover this up? Who else? I mean, we got congressional testimony. Look at this evidence here. Looks like we got a second shooter.
Yeah, it's the 2 levels of capability. It's who can do it, and then regardless of whether or not it succeeds, who can then cover it up. Regardless of what they're covering up, it's whether you're covering up who killed the president or what the president had for breakfast. Who has that access and who has that kind of sweeping control? It's
that's right.
It's that's on the way in and on the way out. It's pretty much, I think, damning fingerprints.
Pretty wild, man.
Wow, Jim. We'll have to talk another time offline. I got some things to share with you that I find very interesting.
I'll put you. I'll link you guys. Yeah,
I'm sure that's a conversation a lot of people would love to hear.
Yeah.
You also need to hear. You also need to hear about this COVID cover up, because it turns out this is one of Langley's greatest operations in history. I mean, this is something else, boy.
No,
7 million people died. And we got everybody thinking it was China.
I'm gonna link it. I'll send you.
Yeah.
I'll send you Dale's number on.
We should do a show.
I was gonna say let's save that for another show because
in a month or 2. Let's do another one. But dude, you're gonna flip when you hear all this stuff. It's like, this is crazy. This is like one of the craziest.
Alien thing too. We still gotta talk about the alien.
The asteroid alien.
Yeah. I got stories.
But for right now, everybody listening. Obviously, it's streaming on John's Twitter, so follow John on Twitter. I don't know what the fuck I'm saying that. Dale's a real one. He's banned from Twitter, but you can follow Dale in the description. His links on Instagram, his coaching, all the stem cell shit he does. It's all out there. His book, American Badass, that's going to be in the description. All Dale stuff. Go show Dale some love, and obviously subscribe to John on Twitter as well as his YouTube. I will link you guys up off air. And yeah, dude, thank you so much for your time, both of you.
Great story, great time. That was very
Thank
informative.
you.
Yeah. All right,
Thank you, guys.